Okay, recently there has been like a really interesting narrative I find, and it's not uncommon with new fighting games, right? Especially fighting games that are previously kind of niche when looking at it compared to other fighting games that have more of a standing, like Street Fighter 5, Tekken, games like that. And basically, it's people saying that they think Strive is really cool, and then they look at Rev and they go like, "Damn, I want to play that," and that's a tough feeling. I ain't gonna lie, that's a tough feeling. I think Rev is a cool looking game to play. I always wanted to get into Guilty Gear Rev. In fact, around when Fighters was getting hella stale, and I was like, yeah, this game is, I just can't play this game anymore. It's hella boring to play. Around that time, I started trying to get into Guilty Gear Rev. I just played a bunch of mission mode, and then I went online, and I was like, all right, nobody's online. And then and I was like, all right, so how do you play Rev? People are like, okay, well, you gotta join these special discords with people that are probably gonna be better than you, because nobody's really out here trying to grind Rev right now, because the state of the way the game is in, for the connection to not really be that good, for you to then deal with some other shit, and it's just like, it's not appealing. So I feel like before all the Guilty Gear fanboys from 80 years ago get mad about like people being interested in Strive and talking about how they want to be, I want to play Rev. Not everybody's in the same boat, I do understand that there are those people that would say Guilty Gear, I'm not playing that game. That game is nasty. There definitely are those people, and they were definitely the same people that's saying that Street Fighter 5 sucks. Tekken is the best game, but they don't even know how to do an electric. These are the same kind of people made up of the same cloth. They kind of just jump from one game to another, just playing whatever's cool on the market and giving it away, and then giving up in like a month or two. And I'm saying there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that sentiment. But I do think there's a more important question to ask when discussing Rev versus Strive. And that's if Strive is somehow doing better in terms of its mechanics to support the game doing so well. We know why Strive is doing well, alright? Like I'm not trying to say it's not a fun game, because let's be honest. What fighting game off launch have you played that just wasn't fun? Like, you bought the fighting game off launch, right? You didn't have any fun with that game. I ain't talking about like a month or I'm talking about what fighting game did you have, you know what I'm saying? And you just played it the first week and you were like, I hate this game. I don't really feel like that's like a thing. Maybe you'll deal with some annoying shit because, bro, it's a fighting game, but like, I don't feel like that's ever really been a sentiment as a kind of a thing that anybody has ever really experienced, bro. To be honest, Fighters is a shit game, and I was playing that for damn near like a year, cause that game was pretty fun. Fun and good are two different things. So when looking at Strive, ready to know that Strive is good in terms of the package it's giving you. You can actually go online. Even if it takes 5 minutes to start the game, you can actually go online and play the game. You can, you know what I'm saying? Like, aside from like frame data and other stuff that, you want that to be in a fighting game package in the year 2021, but sadly it's not. The game has the very bare essentials of what you need to play right. You don't gotta join discords to play people. You can if you want to. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting to join a Discord to play people. I'm just saying that when you're trying to appeal to somebody that plays other games that aren't fighting games, I'm sure you guys gotta realize, when you're trying to appeal to a Warzone player, a Valorant player, or a Rocket League player at that point, like imagine you sign in on Warzone. It goes like, yeah, so join this Discord to bomb left and go into one of these beginner lobbies and say, hey, anybody want to play any game? And then like go from there. Like, yeah, I'm trying to say, not everybody likes to do that. And I'm not saying there's anything right or wrong with needing to go to a Discord. In fact, I like the community that it builds, because it makes that the people that you're fighting aren't just randoms anymore. So now you may think a little bit more before you fight them, right? But at the same time, having systems in the game that lets you play online but not actually letting you play online isn't very good for a game. And I'm not even saying that is the reason why Rev didn't do good. I'm just saying it's one of the factors why Strive is doing really well, especially in the COVID times we have right now. But back to the initial point I was saying. Sorry for going on that little tangent. You have to ask the question of whether or not Strive is good. And the common sentiment right now is that people look at Rev and they go like, okay, that game looks hella cool. I wish I had gotten into Guilty Gear back then. But you need to ask why. And I think that fundamentally, although, and let me make this very clear, I like Strive. I like Strive way more than I like Fighters. I can't really tell about how long I will like Strive along the long road because, bro, it's a month into the game. Like, if you hate the game a month into the game, you're not gonna like it for a year. I ain't start really disliking DBFZ till at least like 7-8 months in, right? But like, come on. There are some things in Strive that I just feel like don't make any sense and could easily be fixed to make the game even just a little bit more fun, but it's just very rigid in the sense that like I just didn't really get a feel from watching Accent Core and Rev 2. I heard a really interesting idea the other day that kind of just spoke for itself, right? Guilty Gear has always really been more about the characters rather than it's ever really been about the system. And I feel like that shouldn't be a Guilty Gear thing. I feel like that should just be a fighting game thing, right? Because to an extent, I feel like Tekken kind of revolves around the same systems, and that game is really coveted to be a well-received game both by the community and by people that have never played Tekken. And I think it's because every character feels unique. And I'm not trying to say that characters don't feel unique in Strive in comparison to Rev, but what I am trying to say is that, one, I think the mechanics of Strive are way more interesting than Rev, just from a first glance. RC is already a great thing, but seeing the characters transition from Rev to Strive kind of hurts. And like I've said before, I do believe that this ain't just a Strive thing. Seeing characters go from Accent Core to Rev was also tough. So lost Sidewinder. And Sidewinder is one of the coolest shit ever. Right? So it's like, it's a common trend. But usually when a character loses something, it should never feel like a loss in these games. Rather, it should feel like a different thing. So what am I saying, right? It is a fact that Accent Core Soul is different from Rev Soul. Although it is literally less in the command list in Rev than it is in Accent Core, it doesn't feel like it. And that's where I'm kind of getting at with this Rev versus Strive video. The idea that for a large part of the game, I don't really feel like they really had a vision in terms of a lot of these characters. Or for a lot of these characters, it was an accident that some of them are good. And they don't really trust themselves to make a good character, right? Because even looking at Kai, for example, and we're going to talk about Kai a little bit later, they took away Greed Sever, alright? They took away Thundersail. Okay, and if we go farther back, I guess they took away other things, but technically it's been gone since Accent Core, so we're just gonna keep those two things, right? And also they also changed the properties of JD, so little things like that. And you look at those things and you go like, all right, Kai is literally different, but what did they give him in return? All right, Shock State, and this should be a big thing. This should literally be a big thing, because if you're trying to make a character in a game where characters are probably the most interesting part about the game, one, and two, they're the part that people love. Like, nobody ever really talks about Guilty Gear except for the music and the characters. So if you're gonna specifically change something about a beloved character, you should give them something in return that makes the character not even feel good, but just feel interesting. I'm not even focused on whether a character is good or not, just whether they find they're interesting. And some characters in Guild and Strive have it. I'm so serious. Some of them have it. Nagoriyuki, he has it. Blood Gauge is hella annoying at first glance, and then you keep watching and you're like, wait, hold on. His normals get better when Blood Gauge goes up. Oh, and some of his Blood Gauge normals let him do tighter frame traps. Some of his Blood Gauge special moves that put it up make him do tighter frame traps. Some of them are plus on block. You know, like, there's some serious counter, there's some serious sauce there. Same thing with characters like Like, I'd even go so far as to get Chip, you know? Low damage at first, very high health. I mean, very low health, sorry. And then you start piecing together the puzzle. You're like, okay, what's what this character is doing? It don't feel the same for Anji. It don't feel the same for Faust. It doesn't feel the same for Kai. Bro, did he just spin the block? What the hell? But anyway, yeah. A large part of the cast just don't feel the same as that. I'd even go so far as to say, like, certain other characters too. Like, Mei is good, but Mei does not feel interesting. She's just good. I think Ram is interesting. If I put a list of on top of like characters that are interesting, I'd say Ram's pretty interesting. Soul's interesting, but you can't really tell because he just kills you in one hit. Chip is pretty interesting. The Goriyuki's interesting. Leo is interesting enough, and Millie is pretty interesting, and I think that's about it, right? I like the whole cast. Maybe I'm missing a couple characters, but these characters to me are like interesting. And mind you, how I only have 6 characters, and there are definitely way better characters than the 6 I even just named. Even Potemkin, in my opinion, is pretty interesting of a character. Right, but this is sorely lacking in a lot of the cast, and that's one of my biggest things about the Rev 2 versus Strive comparison. I really couldn't care about how Rev 2 is playing, even if Gatlings are off and the system mechanics of Strive are kind of wonky on certain sides, like defense, right, or what the risk versus reward of grabbing in this game is versus what it is in Rev. Those are just differences, but there are some things that are objectively worse between Strive to Rev, and that is a lot of the characters, because like I said, some of them just don't feel interesting to me. And I really hope that they get it right with some of these characters, because I still don't feel like I have a main. I played Anji, he was bad and boring. I played Kai, he's boring. I played Chip, not my kind of, not my style of character, but he's interesting, I will say. You know, I feel like that's lost in a lot of the cast. Axel's also another pretty interesting one. But still, here's hoping for DLC, right?